Private Christiansen here with Company D, 2nd United States Sharpshooters, and on today's episode, we're taking the old and turning it into the new. Why don't you join me today? So the last time that the company covered this topic of arsenal packs was 8 years ago by the making of this video. At the point, the first sergeant made what on our website we literally call the Mark 1s, or the Mark 1 stars. And they were these lovely little jeweler boxes that we modified with a brown paper hinge to do for arsenal packs. Now, over the last season, the company's already been field testing these new packs, and we decided that now is time to bring out a video on how to make these. So what really changed? So our first packs, they were great. They did the job, they were cheap, and they were able to survive all of our abuse. But over time, the last 8 years, these poor little guys have kind of seen better days. They've been sweat on, crushed, and they've been kind of abused. Now I took it upon myself to kind of go down the rabbit hole and start figuring out, okay, how do these actually work? And this was kind of spurred by a video from Paper Cartridges with Brent, who had a video where he pulled one of these apart and is actually doing some live fire. And I thought, dang, that would be cool to have some of those for reenacting. And so this is what I was able to come up with. And today, we'll do a little video on how to make your own. Now, before we get started today, our website, secondusss.com, will have a written instructions and we'll have our templates available to make these on your own. But due to how extensive some of this is, I'd love to give you a comprehensive list right here on what's needed. But as I go through the video, it'll become pretty apparent in what you do and don't need. To start things out with, the first thing we're really going to need is donor cardboard. Now, I've done a bit of research into these arsenal packs, figuring out what you really need. It uses a type of compressed fiber board that's about 33 point in thickness for the lid and about a 28 point in the body. I've done my research through Hobby Lobby or a bunch of other little supply and craft stores, and I found it really hard to find exactly that fiberboard or chipboard as it's called. And so I've gone through and decided that why not give this a chance and give it a try. That just standard cardboard that you would get from, ice cream packs, soda pop packs, cereal boxes are really about in that perfect range of thickness. It will be noted that these are going to be a little bit historically inaccurate due to the type of donor cardboard you may get. That is not all going to be nice and white, because as we found out in our previous video of making arsenal packs, Bill Skillman did a wonderful article written up about the original arsenal packs and that they were actually in a white cardboard paper box. But just due to the nature of what I'm able to find at the moment, this is what we're able to work with. If you do know any good sources for white chipboard of thin thicknesses, let me know down in the comments and we'll work on getting these fixed. The next thing we'll need for this first step in making these new arsenal packs are templates. Now, on our website, we'll have printable templates, but because I've made a lot of these and I have access to some tooling for laser cutting and laser etching, I made our templates in some wooden reusable templates. That way I can just quickly trace out and cut out my boxes. For the first step, you'll need the one labeled for the lid and for the bottom. You'll also need a mechanical pencil or a very sharp number 2 pencil so you can trace out your templates. And you'll also need a pair of sharp scissors so we can cut these out too, or a box cutter or anything like that. Getting into this, to get started, taking my cardboard, I like to lay it out and find ways to make the most use. And so I'll take my templates and I'll just kind of lay them out and see, okay, I can probably get 2 complete arsenal packs out of this piece of cardboard box. And just as we're seeing now, I'll take it, I'll press it down, make sure I have enough lead on my pencil. I'll just trace out my templates. They want to be perfectly exact. But just a quick little trace around all of our corners. will leave you with just a nice tracing of our pattern. And you'll do this again and again for each box for as many pieces of cardboard as you have. And from there, after you get your tracings all done, you'll then just take your pair of scissors and start trimming out around the edges of your cardboard. Just in a matter of saving time, I've already done so, and I've already cut out a set of our templates. From here, we move on to the next step. Alright, now that we have all of our cardboard pieces cut out, we now move on to the next step, which is creasing. Now, creasing is one of those things where you don't really have to do it. The first couple iterations of these boards I did, or these arsenal packs I didn't really need to crease. I found out later, talking to the first sergeant, that this would get you a much nicer product, and it does. Because I found out that through taking these little chipboards, especially the ones that have printed logos on the side, that when you bend them along these creases, you start to get cracks and rips occurring along your bend line. And so to avoid that, the first sergeant pointed me towards a multi-purpose scoring board. Now this is one of the bigger ones that you can get from places like Hobby Lobby, and I found for my needs with how big my pieces are that this does me fine. Now these boards also do include, you know, a little piece of plastic knife or bone so you can help crease it, or help crease your boards, excuse me. But with how much I've used this, I've kind of worn it down, and I found in my wife's collection, she calls this a crochet needle or a knitting needle. It's just a nice little piece of metal that is fairly stiff, has a nice little point that's not super sharp, and allows me to get some really nice creases. And now the way I like to do this is that I'll use the included triangle, because I found that these aren't exact due to the nature of how these arsenal packs are made, that they don't really line up with a perfect line or rib here inside the crease board or the scoring board. Then I'll come over and I'll kind of line up with a ridge, and then take my little needle, I will come down and just make a nice little crease. I'll rotate it one, line up another little groove inside the scoring board, crease it again, rotate, oops, crease, rotate one more time, crease, and once I have my 4 creases, you simply just take it, you can bend it, and now you have some nice creases that don't crack. Now, just if you're doing a few of these, you don't really need the scoring board. I found that if you can take a straight edge or a ruler and line it up across this crease, you can just bend up these flaps and it'll be just fine for the few you do. But because I'm a manufacturing engineer, I tend to like to make sure my products are a bit more higher quality for multiple reuse. But we just repeat this process again and again and again until you start just making yourself a nice big stack of cardboard pieces where you have plenty of lids and plenty of bottoms for wrapping. Alright, so with our creasing done and one more change of scene for this next step, we now have to make our outer wrappers. So for this, we're going to need a few more things. So you'll need the remainder of our templates from our template printable. You'll need your bottom wrapper, your lid wrapper template, you'll need the hinge template, and you will need the outer wrapper template to complete the next step. Materials wise, you'll need access to a glue stick. And for paper wise, for your outer wrapper, I've done this with a few different, I've used the brown paper bags like the first sergeant one used, and those work. They're a little bit on the thicker side and they can lead to some longevity. I've also used brown packing paper that I've gotten from packages, but what I found to really like is from your local your local hobby store is some of this postal wrap. It's just brown craft paper. You can get it from Scotch, you can get it from Kraft. This is a 75 square feet roll. It's a brand new roll. I've been using one that I've had open for a while, but it is ideal for our wrapping. You'll see why here soon. Now, I've already cut out a few of these for our example, so forgive me if I don't show you how to cut out a piece of paper, but especially with some of my scrap here, it's the same deal where when this is all laid out, I like to try and layer a few layers, so that way as I'm making quite a few of these, I can quickly get through my material. But to make things easy, I will take one of our shapes. So in this case, just because it's easy for the camera, I'll take our hinge, I'll just hold it down, and I'll take something like a box cutter. You can also trace this out and cut with pencil and paper, or trace out pencil and cut with scissors. But then I'll just come out and cut around each of our corners, being careful not to cut yourself, until I start having a couple sets of cutout wrappers. Now the fiddly part with this construction, after looking at multiple photos of original Arsenal packs, is that these were all paper wrapped and made with multiple different hinges. So as we go through things, you will need one bottom box, one lid box, two hinges, one wrapper for the bottom, one wrapper for the top or for the lid, and one outer wrapper. The outer wrapper we'll set aside as we need to do some more work with this. So to begin, we'll use our biggest piece here to make things easy. I'm going to take my glue stick. I'm going to apply a nice healthy coating of glue to just kind of the center section of our wrapper. With that now being nice and glued up, I'll take my box and I'll line up one of the edges first to make sure everything's nice and square. And then I'll roll down the bottom of the box and just apply pressure. And with that, you should have a bonded base. Now I'll set that aside to dry, and I'll do the same thing with the lid. So, like before, taking our lid wrapper, I'll just come over and apply a nice healthy layer of glue, because I don't want these coming off. I'll take the edge of our lid and line it up with our wrapper. And once I'm happy with that, I'll roll it down, apply some pressure with my fingers over it to make sure it's all nice and bonded. And once that's done, I'll set that aside to dry. Now moving back to our box, I'll do these in this order. So you have to do the two long sides first before you do the thin sides. So I'll roll back a leg. With my glue stick, I'm going to apply glue to the entire section. Now, if you don't want glue residue all on top of your cutting surface or on top of your table, I'll go back and grab one of my scrap cut-off pieces and I'll lay it underneath. So now I can make sure I have a very healthy amount of glue contact on this entire lip. From here, oops, alright, that can go over there. I'll roll up the side of this wrapper. Again, make sure there's plenty of contact. Then the top of this gets rolled over, making sure it all gets adhered to the surface. And this is where your quality comes in. So you're going to pinch up these two corners, line it up as best as you can, and with your pointer finger, you're going to roll over the little trapezoid tab. And the tighter you can get this, the better, because this will help seal your box up. And you'll quickly do the same thing to the other side. And just kind of pinch and hold. Now, you could be asking yourself, well, Private Christiansen, why are we going through all the effort of making our own little boxes? Didn't the boxes before work? And yes, the previous jewelry boxes worked just fine. What they didn't quite work with was the accuracy when it comes to the dimensions of fitting inside the tins. Now, while this is setting up to dry before I do the next side, here's one of my tins. As you can see, here's one of my already done packs. These just drop right in place. They do shift side to side a little, but they're easy to remove, easy to put back, and are very handy. Our prior packs, now these you kind of had to squeeze in just right and set down inside. Now these are nice, they don't shake around too much, but in some of our quick emergency situations where we're ambushed or have the Confederates coming down on top of us and we need to reload from our packs. This gets really fiddly because you have to try and pry for it, and then you have to chuck this in a pocket or have to chuck the empty back in here, and now I'm fiddling with my box. And then if you are one or more of our live fire compatriots, these arsenal packs were done mathematically. Now, for the paper wrapped ones that you'd find at the Springfield or Enfield muskets, it was very much the same for these. You take your ball diameter and multiply it by 5 to get your width. And so a Sharps round being a .54 multiplied by 5 gets you our width of these boxes. Comparing that to our old arsenal packs, you start to see that these old packs were just a tad bit too wide, just a little short, and then just a little thin. They worked for live rounds, but they weren't the best. For these guys, if you do historical shooting with the historical cartridges and lengths, these will be exact. Alright, now that this side is done drying, we'll quickly bring back in our scrap piece of paper. Lay it all down so it's nice and flat. Quickly adhere our next flap. And just like the other side, we'll roll it up and press down our outer flap. We'll roll over our top piece of paper. And then, like before, make sure our corners are nice and square. Wrap over our trapezoid and apply a little pressure to make sure the glue has ample time to bond to both surfaces. Do the same to the other side. Let that set up a little, and then the final part for our boxes is to take care of the short end. So same as before, lots of glue. Make sure there's a nice healthy layer of glue all over, and sometimes make sure I get these corners bonded. I'll roll it back and just apply a little glue to the bottom of the box just to make sure that there is plenty to contact and seal up this outer wrapper. Like before, we'll roll up on our little box. Make sure that those tabs get pressed over, and then we'll roll this top paper over. Flip it around, lay down our box again. Another nice big layer of glue. Roll over our paper. Roll over the back side. It's okay if there's a few wrinkles in here. They're not always going to be perfect, how much glue to get in there. But with that, there is our paper wrapped box bottom. We'll set that guy aside, and we'll just do the same thing very quickly to the lid. Okay, with your lid done, I'll then just kind of combine our two box halves, make sure everything fits, it's all looking nice, and that there aren't really any gaps or any issues or concerns. Now the final part, to make sure our box is actually a box and has a hinge, is a little bit more fiddly. So I'll set aside our box bottom aside for now. We'll need our lids, and we'll need our two little hinges. Oops. So, looking at original photos or original examples, they distinctly had two little hinges. In our prior boxes, we just had a big long piece of paper hinge, and if you're doing these on yours and you don't want to deal with the fiddliness, that same technique will work. You can just have a big long hinge and just be done with it. For these two hinges sit about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch away from the side of the box, Once these two hinges are placed in together, they leave about, another 1/4 of an inch between the two. When it comes to how much of this to stick out, I always try to leave about another 1/4 of an inch of the paper out from the end, because this will give you ample material to glue down to the bottom of the box. And we'll just do that now. So I'll take my fingers, I'll cover about 1/4 of an inch and kind of use them as a guide. And I'll just put another healthy pasting glue. Come to my box. I'll come in here and just kind of eyeball it. It doesn't have to be exact. I'll first press it down to the bottom of our lid. And I'll work my thumb or finger forward, making sure I'm pressing down the edges. And I'll press my fingernail right into the crease and up along the wall. And that leaves us with maybe a little too little on our hinge, but it'll be enough for now. You'll see later that more support comes to these Arsenal packs than just the little hinge. I'm doing the same again. Grab our other little hinge. Ample layer of glue. Come into our box, kind of space that out a little to where we're happy with it. Come down and press down on the hinge. Make sure it's all nice and flush up the corner. And those are about equal. Well, this one sticks out a little more, but that'll be just okay. From there, I'll then mate up the lid with the box. And then I'll bend back the tabs of our hinge. And then directly on the box, I'll apply glue to the hinge. And then fold the tabs down until they make contact. And then I'll just set that aside to set, and now we have a nice hinge. Alright, the next step is to add our pull string. So some materials we'll need is going to be obviously string. Now looking at original boxes, it is hard to tell because a lot of these were meant to be used once and thrown away. And so a lot of the pull strings are missing. Through my readings and through my looking, I haven't really found the exact type of string they would have used, except for one. Now this pack came from the Waterville Arsenal, and it still had its string attached, and it was a very clear white and red twine. Now this might just be a characteristic of Waterville, or if they all had this type of string, I don't know. I've seen some where it might have been white butcher's twine. I've seen some that might have just been twine. Really, I've liked the look of the red and white. It kind of gives it a little pop, a little bit of a tear here, or pay attention to this. And so it's what I've gone with. Now this is butcher's twine. I found that this works best. It's easy to glue down and not a hassle to really work with. The other material we need is our trusty glue stick. You're going to use a lot of glue. And finally, a pencil. Now, you don't really need the pencil. I just find it's handy to use and trace out where we're putting down our twine, just because it keeps me kind of centered and guided. So what you're going to do, you're going to take your box, you're going to take your pencil. Again, make sure you have plenty of lead. And you're going to come and trace right beneath the lid of the box. You can skip the backside. And now you should have a scribed line around the entirety of the box. From here is where I'll take the twine and the glue. And I'll start by applying glue only to half of the front section. Now there's no exact science to this, it's just kind of through your own testing and efforts. This is what I found likes, that if I do it from half, it gives enough surface area to start the twine being wrapped around our box. Now I'm not worried about fraying. If it's flat, if it frays, that's okay, it gives more surface area. I'm going to open my box, just kind of arbitrarily line it up with the center, and make sure it stays at or below my pencil mark, because as this lid comes down, it's going to sit right beneath where the lid is. And from there, I'm going to keep a thumb or a finger on that corner. I'll just rotate the box around, taking more glue. I'll follow right along where that line goes. Keep things a little taut. Wrap it around. And manipulate my butcher's twine to sit where I want it to sit. Now, when it comes to the back, I've done this both ways, where you can apply glue or you can just continue to wrap it. I found that just to keep things more in place for reenactor packs, that I will apply glue to that corner. And this also helps reinforce our hinges too. That's not all just relying on the paper. Oops, and just like that, it came loose. That's why I try to keep a finger and let our glue dry a little. Not too much harm done. Come around the side. Same thing all over again. Now place glue the rest of the way along the front, just because my tail came undone. And here's where you need to be careful with the rest of your twine. So come across to the halfway mark, and then make sure these all stay put. Now the extra twine, I like to leave a little bit extra than the end of the box, and I'll come back and trim the rest off later. I'll come through, just make a quick snip, hold my fingers here for a little bit longer until the glue has cured enough or dried enough that now my twine is now in place. And then I'll set this aside to finish drying. Alright, I hope you didn't forget about that outer wrapper, because next step we're going to need it. Now, these outer wrappers originally were stamped with an ink stamp that would show how many cartridges were in the pack, whether it contained caps, who made it, its caliber, the place it was made of powder, or any other pertinent information that might be required. Now on the back side, I've been kind of trying to hide this. I've made my own stamp so that way I can actually ink stamp these. Inking wise, I've used anything from the water acrylic style roll-on ink, and for this latest run I'm trying to use this ink pad that's been provided by Sergeant Speakerman, and it's turned out okay so far. I'm going to keep it going for now and just see how we like this compared to my other style packs, which came on a little thick. So far I've had good results. So to begin with this, the reason I glued on this stamp to our template was so that way I could center the stamp. Now I don't know if originally they would have stamped on the marking after they already wrapped the packages, but to me this made the most sense, as trying to stamp these boxes after the fact, to me it would seem like you'd almost crush the box. And so simply the way we're going to go about this is that with our stamp, I'm going to take our ink pad, and I'm just going to come and dab on a good layer of ink until I see that it is all nice and covered. And looking at this, you can definitely tell through just some use where you need to make sure that the ink gets laid onto. We'll cap my ink pad so that way it doesn't dry out. We'll take our paper wrapper. This is where I'll carefully line up the edges of the wrapper, drop down the paper, put a finger right dead in the center, and now I'll just use my fingers to smother out or smooth out the pad. I've used foam rollers, I've used other, but I've just found that this seems to be the best way to make sure you get a good impression. From there, I'll lift off my pad, and you'll be left with a nice impression on your outer wrapper. And there, we'll set this guy aside. And now we take a note on what you want to do next. Now, with these boxes, the way I've done these for the company is that I leave them empty for now. I'll wrap them up all proper like I've done with our example here. And then I'll go through and waterproof these with an original waterproofing recipe, which we'll cover later. But if you as an individual don't really want to deal with the waterproofing agents, you can put in your blank rounds. You know, these will fit just nice and fine. There'll be plenty of room for them. You can put in your roll of caps if that's what you want to do. You'll cover it up. You'll wrap it as I'm about to show you, and you can leave like this. If you want to go to the campaign or authentic level and actually have your pull cord, you can still actually use the pull cord, and I'll show that at the end of the video, just kind of how cool this is. Or if you don't want to do the waterproofing but you want to reuse these, the way I've gone around that is I go back and take an X-Acto knife or my box cutter, and I can see and feel where my cord is. I'll take a knife and I'll slice right above where the cord is. So that way when you open these up, you can still use them as our old Arsenal packs where, you know, you can pop them open, use them, close them back up, and put them back in a pocket. And from the outside, as long as you don't pull the cord, and just carefully slice it, from the outside when you hand these out to your guys or use them, they look as if they've never been opened. For our case, we'll just keep going forward, but it's just something you want to be aware of, because if you're going to waterproof these afterwards, you put powder in here, you do always want to be careful that you don't get it hot enough to auto-ignite your powder. But that's a fair warning. Do at your own risk. This is what we do. So to wrap our boxes, we come back to our old friend, the glue stick. I'll take the top of the box. Actually, for this case to show this one example, I'll actually take some of my blank rounds, and I'll actually load this up with 10 blank rounds, just to show that they do in fact fit. So 5 rounds at the bottom, they fit nice and snug. And if you want to see how to make these blank rounds, go back on our company YouTube and you'll find how to make Sharp's Reenactor rounds. But you can see they all fit nicely, they don't really rattle around too much, and they do the job just fine. From here, I'll seal it up, take my glue stick, apply a nice healthy layer of glue, and this becomes the fun part. So ideally you want to get this label centered as well as possible. I found that you can kind of come here and kind of feel around without bending too much and just kind of center your wrapper. Once you're kind of happy with this location, just come through and press down on the lid, and you now have a nice centered wrapper or label. From there, you need to decide which side you want to start with. It doesn't really matter. I just kind of start this side. I'll roll back the wrapper, come back with our handy dandy glue stick. And this comes into another play too. I should mention that if you want to tear the wrapper and you don't want to do the cuts, if you just glue the top side and you just wrap these around like a Christmas present and put a little glue on the top, you're able to salvage these boxes by tearing the wrapper off and putting on a new wrapper. If you're going all the way to the waterproofing, you could do that. I'd advise to do what I'm about to do just so it's all secured. But this is what I do. You can experiment on your own with your materials. But as before, I'm going to put a nice layer of glue on the side and over that piece of cord. I'm going to roll it forward, making sure I have good contact. Then on the bottom of the box, I'm going to do the same thing about a little more over halfway, depending where this paper is going to end. And I'm going to finish wrapping it over. and that's nice and cemented in place. Likewise, going to come back to this other side. Roll it over. Make sure I have nice good contact with all my glue. And then, just as before, I'm going to come over and apply a layer of glue. Now for this side, you might get a little messy. I'll come and support the wings and get some glue on these wings that are overhanging. Wrap it over. And now we're starting to get our parcel. So from here, you're going to start wrapping like a present. So take your glue, you kind of put it down in this little side crevice, and a little bit along the sides. And I'll come in and just make sure there's more glue down here on the bottom. And just like a present, I'll come in and just push in on our wrapper first, and then make nice little creases along the top and bottom. I'll do the same thing to the other side. And over here to the box itself, like before, push this side in, give them a nice crease, and continue on to the bottom. Now if all that glue's still there, we've already kind of helped ourselves. Apply some glue to the paper side only. And then it's important that you start from the bottom flap and work up, and you'll see why here in a moment. So I'll make sure that my paper gets good contact all along its length. I'll apply some glue to the top there and wrap this side down. Now when we come to the front side of our box, we have this tail end that we need to be aware of. So I'll start from this side opposite of our tail, and just like the reverse side of the box, we're just going to glue it up as we did previously. Now the tail, we'll tuck it out of the way so you don't get any glue on it yet. I'll glue this like normal. And make sure that tail does not get caught under this next flap, otherwise you will not be able to pull open your box. Now this side, I'm going to use a lot, or not a lot, but a bit more glue than I did on the previous side. So I'm going to put a little glue where our butcher's twine will continue. So that way I will pull the butcher's twine out and just make sure it gets pressed into place. so that way it's nice and secured. And this is why it's important to start at the bottom. If you start at the bottom, you'll be able to have that nice little overlap of our butcher's twine. I'll apply more glue down to the bottom of our box. Apply some of my tabs if I feel I need it. Because we got so much more going on this side, I feel I need it. Roll this forward until I make contact. Might crease the edges a little to make sure that they sit down on the box. And just work it down until it's all nice and secured. And like before, I'm gonna come in, apply glue to the side of the box, to my little ears. Gonna roll down. You're still nice and creased and sealed. Then I'll take my scissors, come over, snip off the excess tail. And like that, you now have a finished sharp arsenal pack, just like our one here. Now, just to prove that these do in fact work with the pull tab, I'm going to take the one that we did prior, since it's nice and dry. I'll show you that by grabbing the tab, by simply just pulling, we'll cut through our paper, all the way around the back side, back around the front, and just keep pulling until your string comes off. Now you can open your pack to your blank rounds. And that is all there is to it to making our new and improved Mark II Sharps Arsenal packs. Stick around, we'll get another video out to you about how to make the waterproofing agent that goes over the top of these. Otherwise, this has been Private Chris Chance from the Company D, 2nd United States Sharpshooters. Keep your powder dry.